Welcome to Beyond the Badge, presented by the Oshkosh Police Department.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Beyond the Badge. I'm Joe Nichols. On today's show, we're going to be going out to the 3rd Ave Garage and we're going to be talking with Fleet Manager Scott Footet and Detective Brett Robertson about the new crime scene truck. We thank all of you watching us on City Cable 10 and those of you listening to us on 101.9 WOCT. Without further ado, let's go over to the 3rd Ave Garage.
Well, this was a vehicle that was scheduled to be rotated into retirement from the fire department, and we identified the need to have a newer, bigger vehicle to use as a crime scene unit, both for criminal investigation and crash team investigation. So they allowed us to take over one of their rigs that was scheduled to be retired, and we converted it over to usable space for what our detectives and crash team need. Basically, it's an old ambulance. We took it, was red at first, and so we gave it a little makeover, made it look more acceptable to what our squad cars and our department motto is. So we transformed it into what you see today. Again, it was red. Now it's black and white with all of our identifiers on it, and it basically is set up so that when the detectives are called to a major incident, they can have all the tools and items that they need to perform their tasks all in a one-stop shop, basically. So this truck is what they need, and we've converted it over and it's in full operation now. There's a few minor little tweaks that need to be made, but for the most part this thing is ready to roll today to any of our major crashes or investigations that we have ongoing. Our friends at OEC Graphics were able to come in and give it a total makeover. So compared to you see the Oshkosh Fire ambulances out on the road now, it looks nothing like what it did. So it actually, we're pretty proud of the way it turned out. So we're glad that they have all the tools that they need now to do what they need to do on their investigations.
Hi, I'm City Manager Mark Roloff, and I have an important message for Time Warner Cable viewers of Oshkosh Community Media Services. For over 25 years, Oshkosh Community Media has kept Oshkosh residents informed, educated, and engaged with the Oshkosh community and local government. For this reason, we feel it is important that viewers know that on September 11th, Time Warner Cable will be converting CATV2 and City Cable 10 to digital. So what does this mean for CATV2 and City Cable 10 viewers after September 11th? If you have an older TV, CATV2 and City Cable 10 will disappear. To continue receiving our channels, you will need to contact Time Warner Cable for a digital adapter. If you have a digital cable box, nothing will change and the channels will remain on 2 and 10. If you have a newer flat screen TV, you can do a channel scan to restore our channels. For details on Time Warner Cable's digital conversion, we encourage you to visit our website, OshkoshCommunityMedia.org, and click on the Frequently Asked Questions guide.
Compared to what we had previously, this is a definite upgrade. And we'll use this on any of our major crime scenes and investigations, and it allows us to do several different things. I mean, obviously we can store way more evidence in a vehicle like this securely and safely as we're processing a large crime scene. And then it also allows us obviously to take pretty much all the tools with us to one location, so we're basically not making trips back and forth to the police department to get any additional equipment. Some things that we obviously can't keep in here, certain electronic or camera systems and such, we do leave those back at the building just because of the winter and the elements. But for the most part, this has got everything we needed as a mobile crime scene unit to process pretty much any scene we come into and investigating. Having an ambulance, obviously, it gives us a ton of storage, both inside and out. And the outside here, we have numerous compartments, and some of it we haven't even entirely filled up, at this point. But as an example here, we've got one of our metal detectors, and we'll use that for obviously searching for items where we can't see something. A case that I can remember specifically we used it for is we had a bunch of burglaries take place, a bunch of home invasions, and a firearm was stolen. It was tossed out of a vehicle as it was moving down one of the highways into a snowbank, and obviously with the accumulation of snow, and as several months progressed, once we found out that where the gun was, we went out and we were searching for it and used a metal detector, and actually were able to recover it. Kind of making our way around here. Again, a lot of extra storage here. We have obviously some traffic cones, mainly for blocking off the roadway. We'll probably put that around this vehicle and shut down maybe a lane of traffic depending on where the crime scene was. Yeah, the graphics are really nice. Obviously, they did a really good job. And in here, we have some crash team investigation equipment. So basically, our accident team would come on. Any vehicular related crashes, we'll call out the crash team where it results in, normally great bodily harm, death, obviously substantial injuries to anyone, any parties. So obviously, we have a lot of traffic vests. Everybody is required to wear, bright neon vests. Obviously, we don't want our investigators and officers getting hit while they're on the roadway. And then we have some various other measuring equipment and processing equipment, and some of it includes we have a three-dimensional, mapping software system where we're able to go through and basically plot out or map out, so to speak, in a layout form a crime scene. And a lot of that equipment is contained within here, and then also on the opposite side. But obviously for the crash team, they need various tape measures, any straight lines and such, and other equipment for measuring distances of skid marks and crash. Let's say a vehicle rolled over, for example. They'd obviously have to measure out distances between marks and scratches or other indentations in the pavement or gravel and or concrete, and they want to specifically be able to record those. So then later, if an investigation went to court, they could basically lay everything out on a large sheet of paper for the jury to see and almost reenact, so to speak, the scene. But as you can see in here, we've just got a lot of equipment that, obviously they use some templates and stuff in different forms that we use for victims, and then paint for marking. You've got tires or anything else in the roadway that might be of interest. And I'll get in that a little bit further with some of the labels and stuff that we use as well. And let me see what we have here. And this is just additional equipment to use for when they're shooting, obviously, trajectories and documenting specific, like almost, so to speak, GPS locations of each individual item that we want to record or we think is imperative in the investigation. So there's a lot of that equipment in here. I'll get to a little bit more of the interesting stuff on this side. Obviously, we have all the emergency lights on here. So if we do need to park the vehicle at any specific location, we can activate the red and blues, and we're obviously letting the other motorists know to watch out and be careful so they don't run into this. But in here is a little bit more, again, of the crash team investigation and their equipment. Obviously, a tripod, their stick that they use to mark the locations of each individual, point or reference point that we wish to, record and keep on documenting purposes for the investigation. And then here we have the Nikon. It's a total station, and this is the actual unit that does the mapping, so to speak. There's also an additional unit that is handheld that's not in here, but basically that the operator of this uses to mark specifically they want to label a specific item. So if there was in a motorcycle crash, for instance, if there was a helmet on the ground, obviously when they go over and they shoot that point and they want to shoot a point of reference, they can type right in there, motorcycle helmet. So when they later download it right into a computer, everything is all labeled for them. So basically you don't have to sit there and do the work 3 times over again. Just take care of it once in the labeling aspect. And here's just some general additional lighting equipment that we might use in a night crash scene where we have, obviously some low light conditions. We want to throw a little bit more light on the scene, probably mainly for photography, but then also for us as well to make sure that we're not missing anything in the investigation. And a fire extinguisher. In here, obviously extension cord for running power. A lot of times in an extended crime scene, we'll ask a neighbor if we can borrow some power for a time frame, or if we need to bring a generator over if it's a scene that's way out in the middle of nowhere. We can run power to some of the equipment that obviously requires it. Tucked back inside here we have some levels, which we also can use for measuring distances and kind of like squaring up crime scenes or squaring up a specific crime scene if we needed to, in measuring an item off the floor, or if we were on an uneven terrain or something and we needed to, we're trying to maybe measure a specific person's or height of a vehicle off the ground. We use levels for those types of situations. In here we have just some flags, and basically we just use these as well to kind of map out an extended or a larger scene for basically points of interest. Let's see. I think down here we have some batteries, obviously the crime scene van operates out or uses. But up here we have some tools, and a lot of times we do have to, for drywall instance, if we have let's say a bullet that goes through a piece of drywall or into a wall, we need to recover that in like a homicide investigation or something else. We would obviously need some tools to cut the drywall, cut the wall, cut some carpet, pretty much anything that we might need if it was an outside crime scene. Maybe we have to take a portion of the a neighbor's fence or a fence that was involved if maybe a bullet or something traveled through that. We have some other just kind of safety equipment for us, and depending on what kind of crime scene we're dealing with here. Some gas masks, and you can't really see, we'll get into it a little bit inside, but we have, that's a sexual assault vacuum, kind of get into that, but another toolkit up here for just some other tools that we might use or need. Obviously some crime scene tape for roping off the crime scene. And then really anything else. Maybe we're on a search warrant and we need to cut some locks off the storage lockers or something of that nature. And then up in here, just some road flares. Generally, we use these occasionally, but nowadays with LED lighting and other things, we generally don't really use those anymore. But we have them in case we may need them. Let's go on inside here. So basically, this is your everyday, ordinary ambulance. Minus all the fire department's equipment, and we've kind of replaced it with all of ours. But we can start with right back here on where we were. We have a sexual assault vacuum, and it gets used on if we had a crime scene where there was a sexual assault that had occurred, and we might need to recover DNA, specifically hair particles or other, and off a certain carpet area if we think the assault may have occurred on a carpet or on a certain rug, piece of carpet, maybe a bed even we would use it. Normally we'd probably just take the sheets of the bedding on a bed, but maybe there isn't any sheets on the bed. So we use that to vacuum up the scene. We have some blood collection kits. These are our DNA kits that we get from the state crime lab, and it basically they just well, this one's sealed. We'll leave it sealed, but inside there's, in a nutshell, it's Q-tips with a little bit of distilled water in packaging that we can, if there's, let's say there's blood on this wall here and we wanted to take a couple samples of it, we would get those, use some distilled water on the Q-tips and rub it over the sample or the blood on the wall and then package that as well. Kind of going back, just some additional storage, some seats here. Obviously we have a lot of storage here on the shelves and even here on the ground for larger items we may need to take. But obviously we have a lot of room. We're not tripping over evidence and such that we're bringing on in here. Back here we just have a lot of protective equipment that we may need. Been on death scenes that maybe a subject has deceased several weeks to a month prior to us being notified, and the scene could be fairly dirty, and you obviously want some protective equipment for the officers for bloodborne pathogens. And we have a postmortem fingerprint kit. Maybe if we're dealing with a certain case where an individual has never been fingerprinted before, but we're checking the crime scene for fingerprints to see if anybody else maybe potentially has been there. We're going to have to compare those fingerprints with something, so we may need to take that person's fingerprints. We also have an additional larger fingerprint kit that we use for processing our larger scenes. And here's just another infectious control kit that we have. Just has a little bit more equipment in there as well, some booties, and then also some masks and gloves, a few other items that we may need to get ourselves fully protected and covered. Blood test kit. I mean, maybe we have a crime scene where, or somebody called in and they noticed a bunch of bloods on a sidewalk, and they don't know if it was from, hey, maybe a dog got hit by a car and the dog laid down for a little bit, or maybe even a deer. Or if it could have been a human and maybe that was the scene of a substantial battery the night before. And we need to test the blood on the sidewalk to make sure that it's human blood. So we'd use a test kit for that. Yeah, and that's it pretty much for this section. Here we have some tarps. Obviously if we use tarps for rain or the elements, if it's snowing or if it's raining out, we're processing a scene outside, and we can't get a full canopy out over a subject or an area. Maybe we need to prevent some footprints in the mud or the water or in the sand from being hit by the elements or exposed to the elements. So we put a tarp over it temporarily until we can get everything photographed in that process. Over here we have a lot of our markers, and we really use these probably more than a lot of the equipment, basically just for photography and for designating a crime scene and what item each specific number or letter is referenced to. So for example, if you have a scene where, let's say it was a robbery and the subject had thrown their clothes, maybe dropped some money or a bank bag, or maybe they dropped the gun on the way out, and you wanted to obviously photograph the entire scene, but you wanted to label it with some markers so you can see and later show the jury that here specifically was some money inadvertently fell. This may be another spot where this is where the weapon was used, is where that was discarded. Here's some clothing that the subject took off and threw. So we would use that to mark out the scene, especially even more so for footprints, to show a path of an individual, or just, like I said, just different items. And then we'll also use a lot of the letters for photography on specifically like walls of a home. Maybe you have a battery of where maybe a baseball bat was used, and you have some blood splatter on the wall, and maybe you have where the bat missed the subject and the bat hit into the wall and created obviously an indentation or broke through the drywall, and you want to photograph that entire scene overall with the numbers or letters, and then also you want to zoom right on into those specific as well. So we would use those. And then the last kind of area here is basically like our arson processing tools. And if we need to collect a piece of evidence, let's say we have a rag that was dipped in gasoline that was used to start the exterior of a building on fire, and obviously we want to collect that, and we want to place it in an arson can, and then we'll send that down to the crime lab for processing for accelerants and to test and make sure that it is in fact gasoline. And we know obviously gasoline's normally not kept or put on buildings, so obviously we knew somebody potentially started that fire. So we have some of those. We have some gel footprint lifters, which are coming very handy. Normally on like a burglary or something else, we're looking for a shoe impression, and we want to get obviously the overall width, length of a person's shoe size, and then also the tread pattern to show wearing on a specific shoe. And we would use these gel lifters to lift a print off the ground or the surface. And normally it's off of a hard surface. We would generally use something like this for, like an impression in the sand or the mud. Generally we would cast a print like that. And then we have some tool impression kits. And we would use those for, again, probably more or less like a burglary scene where we have a residence or a business that is broken into and maybe a pry bar was used. Well, maybe the officers did a traffic stop, right after an alarm came out, and they got a subject and they found a pry bar in the vehicle, and they want to match that pry bar up and the width of the pry bar up to the specific area where the pry bar was used to gain access into the building. So we would obviously take photographs of that area, and then we would go ahead and we can even do further and just like a gel impression kit, which would fill the void in the area that was hollow or where the tool was used to pry open or gain access into the building. And we can send that sample along with the pry bar down to the crime lab, and they can make recommendations on whether or not they feel that same pry bar was used in that scene. Let's see. We have another portable kit for packaging materials, and this is really handy because obviously, we need to, if we've got a scene where we're going to pull this vehicle up, our crime scene vehicle up in front of a residence, and obviously we're processing everything inside the residence. It's handy to have all of our equipment right in a large Stanley tote, and basically it's like our go kit for processing a scene inside. And once again, we've just got kind of some general packaging equipment. We got evidence tape, bags that we label when we're collecting different items in various different sizes, and then obviously our miscellaneous envelopes and narcotics envelopes. But this is basically all the packaging equipment we use for packaging evidence and bringing it back to the police department and then placing it into our evidence room. And I think the last other portable equipment that we use is our packaging materials kit here, which is basically another kit. And I have to see if this can go down. Which we just got, and this also has an additional equipment in here: magnifying glass, staplers for stapling our evidence bags, some more flags. We have trajectory rods that we use to show if let's say a bullet traveled through a wall at a residence, and it, entrance and exit hole we do have. We use a trajectory rod to kind of generally see at what trajectory that bullet path or flight path was on. We've used those on numerous different cases. And then the top then comes out as well, and we have some more additional equipment down below here. Let me make sure I get this right. It slides back and out. Sorry, I was hanging up on the bottom. But here we have some just additional boxes and cans and some masks and other things we may need. Let's say we recover a bullet, we need to put the bullet in, obviously something. So we use those and some additional tape and evidence tape and knife boxes, and we do have handgun boxes and stuff that we also have in here. If we need to recover a weapon that was on scene, obviously we want to put it into a box, especially for if we're going to maybe potentially test that for DNA or fingerprints. We obviously don't want it banging around and maybe losing or affecting that piece of evidence. But that's pretty much it. It's been a great addition. We're glad to have it, and hopefully, though, we don't have very many incidences at all where we have to roll this thing out. But if we do have to, it's a great tool for us.
Hi, I'm City Manager Mark Roloff, and I have an important message for Time Warner Cable viewers of Oshkosh Community Media Services. For over 25 years, Oshkosh Community Media has kept Oshkosh residents informed, educated, and engaged with the Oshkosh community and local government. For this reason, we feel it is important that viewers know that on September 11th, Time Warner Cable will be converting CATV2 and City Cable 10 to digital. So what does this mean for CATV2 and City Cable 10 viewers after September 11th? If you have an older TV, CATV2 and City Cable 10 will disappear. To continue receiving our channels, you will need to contact Time Warner Cable for a digital adapter. If you have a digital cable box, nothing will change and the channels will remain on 2 and 10. If you have a newer flat screen TV, you can do a channel scan to restore our channels. For details on Time Warner Cable's digital conversion, we encourage you to visit our website, oshkoshcommunitymedia.org, and click on the Frequently Asked Questions guide.
Welcome back to Beyond the Badge. We thank all of you for watching and listening to us today. We also especially thank Scott Foote and Brett Robertson for being on today's show. Next time, we'll be talking about CPTED, which is Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And we're going to be talking about landscaping and lighting, and hopefully you'll make your home or business more secure. Until next time, make sure that you drive sober, slow down, and always wear your seatbelt. Thank you.